Tonight, a restriction rethink as Melbourne faces new Omicron worries. 700 forced into isolation here with grim warnings interstate and overseas. Plus, holiday confusion as the borders reopen and international travellers touch down. A new blow for a family haunted by a truckie tragedy. Australian cricket star Michael Slater in court again, now bound for rehab. Bikie boss Toby Mitchell set free for Christmas after a violent birthday bash. And later, why eating salmon might not be as healthy as you think.
Live from Melbourne, 7 News with Mike Amor starts now.
Good evening. Victoria has pushed back the easing of mask restrictions and ordered hundreds into isolation after they were exposed at 2 bars as authorities face growing concerns over the spread of Omicron. It comes with a warning from the World Health Organisation and a grim prediction from New South Wales that cases there could hit 25,000 a day.
Just when we thought it was all behind us.
It's another punch that none of us wanted, but we've always rolled with the punches as we've needed to.
Victoria recorded another 4 Omicron cases today, bringing our total to 10. 850 people have been forced into isolation for 7 days after one confirmed Omicron case from interstate visited the Circuit Bar and Peel Hotel on Friday.
We've spent 619 days dealing with this virus, and now I thought we were going to live with it. If this is living with it, it's not really a life that a lot of us want, frankly.
But the world is being put on notice.
I need to be very clear. Vaccines alone will not get any country out of this crisis. Countries can and must prevent the spread of Omicron with measures that work today. It's not vaccines instead of masks. It's not vaccines instead of distancing. It's not vaccines instead of ventilation or hand hygiene. Do it all.
And because of that risk, masks will stay on here in shops for another 4 weeks instead of being ditched tomorrow as planned.
One word, Omicron, has changed the landscape.
But some rules can be relaxed. Proof of vaccination will no longer be required in retail, except for hair and beauty, for under 18s at restaurants and cafes, and while inspecting a new home or attending auctions. Unvaccinated Victorians can also return to churches, weddings and funerals, unless venues have their own requirement.
These are important occasions for people. There's a wellbeing element about being able to access them.
Victoria recorded 1,405 new cases and 3 more deaths. In New South Wales, there are currently 110 Omicron cases, but daily infections are soaring, doubling in the past 24 hours to more than 1,300 new cases. And the predictions are even more worrying.
What they're telling us is that by the end of January we could be looking at 25,000 cases of the virus every single day.
Even if those 25,000 cases are more mild, we're still expecting a lot of people to end up in hospital, and that will disrupt care for everybody else.
And Shah Novella, hundreds of thousands of Victorians are now overdue for their booster shots.
Well, that's right. When the interval for booster shots was changed from 6 months down to 5, overnight 720,000 Victorians became eligible for their 3rd shot. The real worry now is that more than 400,000 Victorians are overdue for their booster. As for those who are yet to receive one jab, there are more than 330,000 Victorians over the age of 12 in that category. The state government is urging them to speak to a doctor that they trust and book in straight away. Mike.
Chanel, thank you. Nervous Victorian holidaymakers are watching Queensland closely after health authorities backflipped on a decision forcing a plane load of travellers to quarantine for 2 weeks. The Prime Minister says common sense must prevail so Australians can have certainty about summer travel plans.
Teary reunions at Melbourne Airport brought heartwarming hugs and tears.
Love you so much.
But just 3 days into Queensland's reopening, it's hit turbulence. A COVID-positive passenger from Newcastle flew into Brisbane, then Townsville. His suspected Omicron status prompted the Queensland Health Department to order all passengers on both flights into a 14-day quarantine, including Christmas. Hours later, its chief health officer overruled the order to include just the 5 closest rows, with a nudge from the Prime Minister.
I urge the government to ensure that they found a way to get these Australians to be with their loved ones at Christmas.
Not too happy about being quarantined for 2 weeks and missing Christmas with our family.
Donna McKenzie was sitting very close to the man.
Being double vaxxed, I do feel like it should be a week.
All future flights, whether it's Omicron or Delta, that it will only be those people sitting immediately around the positive case who will need to be deemed close contacts.
With the holiday season days away, it's the sort of indecision the tourism industry doesn't need to spook already edgy travellers.
We're going to see our granddaughter. I don't want to spend Christmas in quarantine.
We must make sure we get it right and that common sense prevails.
And Tasmania reopened. Fully vaccinated travellers now able to head south. The spirit of Tasmania back in action.
Go Tassie!
Still, among the joy, there was some apprehension at the airport.
Everything just changes so quickly that it's very stressful.
I won't be relaxed till I'm on the plane and it starts to taxi.
Everyone's very excited. We've got half the state we've got to see, so everyone's very, very excited.
Also from today, skilled migrants and international students are allowed back into Australia. It was March last year when they were told to return home.
I don't have to do Zoom uni again.
Some started studying at our unis online from China.
I even don't know what my school would look like.
Because you've never been there?
Yes. It's my first time.
We realise as a university, but as a country, we've got a bit of work to do to rebuild our reputation and the demand for our education.
To lure them back, Melbourne City Council is introducing programs like wellbeing support and employment advice to convince them to choose us.
What's really important for us is that our international students feel embraced into Melbourne, that they have that quintessentially Melbourne experience.
And the council will spend $30,000 on tickets for events and attractions across town, like the zip line over the Yarra, so international students can enjoy them for free. Paul Dowsley, 7 News.
Scientists are revealing more about the Omicron strain, including just how effective vaccines are against it. Anne Sanders has the latest data.
Mike, as we've heard today, the real concern about Omicron is how quickly it spreads. A major new South African study is giving us some new insight. It's confirmed Omicron does appear to cause less severe illness than Delta. Far fewer people are being admitted to hospital, but it is more resistant to vaccines. This study focused on Pfizer, finding 2 doses gave very little protection against infection, but offered 70% protection against a severe Omicron illness, compared with 90% during the Delta wave. Experts believe booster shots give the best protection. They're now available 5 months after your second dose. There's also new data on antiviral pills. Pfizer claims its pill cuts the risk of death or hospital admission by 70%. The other pill from Merck has been revised down to just 30% effectiveness. Our federal government has both on order. Mike.
Thanks, Anne. Bikie boss Toby Mitchell will spend Christmas at home after he was released on bail despite initially pleading guilty to assault charges.
Have you got plans for Christmas now that you're not behind bars?
Just minutes after the Mongols' boss was jailed for 2 months, he appealed the conviction, hinting that he'll contest the charges. 47-year-old Mitchell was back on the streets this afternoon. He's accused of striking a man twice in the face during his birthday party at an Echuca pub last month. A heartbroken family has hit out at the sentence of a killer truck driver who could be free in just 4 months. Michael Nola was using his mobile phone when he caused a shocking crash that claimed the lives of a mother and her young son.
A family torn apart by a split-second decision, now facing fresh heartache.
This man can be out April next year is just devastating. It just adds more
weight to our troubles.
The West family was on their way to visit grandparents near Ballarat 2 years ago when Michael Nola's truck ploughed into their car. He was on his mobile phone and failed to give way. 37-year-old Jessica and her 5-year-old son Deaton were killed. Eldest son Oakley suffered a severe brain injury.
The last time we saw them was Christmas Day 2 years ago, and every Christmas is an ordeal now. There's not a lot to look forward to.
Jessica's husband Anthony remains haunted by their final moments together as a family of 4.
The sound of my wife screaming moments before impact is the last thing I heard her say. That scream lives with me every day.
The 60-year-old truck driver was sentenced to 2 years and 7 months behind bars, but with time already served, he's eligible for parole in April. Mr. Nola has been diagnosed with PTSD and claims to suffer flashbacks and disturbed sleep since the crash. In sentencing, the court heard how he has taken full responsibility, even writing a letter of apology to the West family.
We shouldn't be suffering the way we have for the last 2 years.
Cassie Zervos, 7 News.
The violent criminal sentenced to life in jail for murdering Carl Williams has started his legal fight for freedom. Prisoner Matthew Johnson is applying to appeal his conviction. He bashed Williams to death with the stem of an exercise bike in 2010. Johnson's legal team is calling on Police and Corrections Victoria to hand over piles of documents. The case returns to court in February. A 5-year-old girl has critical injuries and a man is on the run after a devastating crash in Melbourne's West. Blake Johnson has the latest from the Royal Children's Hospital in Blake. Police are hunting a passenger who fled the scene.
Mike, he was one of 3 people in a white Toyota seen driving erratically before colliding with a black BMW. In that BMW, a 34-year-old woman and a 5-year-old girl who was badly hurt in the collision on Birdwood Street in Maribyrnong yesterday. From the Toyota, the driver was arrested and so too a passenger. They both have serious injuries, but another passenger is on the run and police suspect he has a knife. The Toyota was seen overtaking a tram illegally on Gordon Road moments before. Officers say they were about to start pursuing that car when the collision occurred. Police asked anyone who might have dash cam vision of the incident to get in touch. Mike?
Blake Johnson, thank you. Millions of retirees could soon have more money in their nest egg. Prime Minister Scott Morrison hit the campaign trail today, announcing an overhaul of the reverse mortgage scheme.
Continuing an embarrassing tradition of prime ministerial pie chuckers.
What could possibly go wrong?
You could miss the pitch altogether. Not quite as bad as John Howard in Pakistan, though he did warm up.
Well, I think the second one we got pretty close there.
And with an election coming up, wanting to get closer to older voters, revamping the pensions loan scheme.
And what it enables people to do is to use the equity in their own home to increase their income in their retirement.
Reverse mortgages, loans taken on the family home paid fortnightly or in lump sums. To supplement pensions or super, the interest rate cut from 4.5 to 3.95%, with property values soaring, allowing older Australians to spend some of the windfall now.
We often hear that people are asset rich and income poor. Well, this is now going to help change that.
Eligible singles can access up to $1,450 a fortnight, couples $2,200 or up to 2 lump sums a year of $12,000 each. The loans not repaid until the house is sold.
We've known for some time that the take-up of this scheme was too low and the interest rate was too high.
The lower interest rate will certainly make the scheme more attractive to people.
The revamped scheme to be revealed in tomorrow's mid-year budget update. The update will also forecast modest wages growth. For someone earning $90,000 a year, an extra $10,000 in 4 years' time, just keeping up with inflation. Mark Riley, 7 News.
Michael Slater is set to check himself into a mental health ward as part of bail conditions after an alleged AVO breach. The cricketing great is accused of bombarding his ex-girlfriend with texts and phone calls.
Hiding on the back seat of a police car, Michael Slater was taken from the police station holding cells to his next place of detention, having been granted bail. Prosecutors opposed it.
Does your client accept he can't approach his ex?
I've got nothing to say today, guys. Thank you very much.
Telling the court Slater's alleged victim has real fears of him attending her premises when she is alone. It follows what his own lawyer described to the court as a single breach of his AVO. He slipped up once. Slater was arrested this morning and charged after he allegedly sent his ex 66 text messages and 18 phone calls in under 3 hours. The magistrate only granted bail because she said he has a good record and it's better for the community if he receives the treatment he needs.
I think hospital treatment is vital for anyone who needs help, and Mr. Slater is going there because that's what he wants to get, okay?
Slater is now effectively under house arrest at his sister's place until he's admitted to a mental health ward at the Northern Beaches Hospital in the coming days. He's been told not to touch a drop of alcohol and warned if he breaches this AVO, he'll be back in custody again. The matter returns to court next week. Evan Batten, 7 News.
Stage performers have marked the revival of Melbourne's arts industry with an all-in photo on the steps of Parliament House. The casts of Moulin Rouge, Frozen and Harry Potter posing together for the happy snap.
They are now given the opportunity to celebrate what theatre is, what live performance is, and how fantastic it is to kind of... There is nothing like theatre.
All 3 shows are currently playing in Melbourne theatres. David Warner didn't bat today, but Andrew McCormack, the Aussies are set to roll the dice for the second test.
That's right, Mike. He'll play through pain against England. Warner's fitness fight is ahead. Also, the young speedster replacing Josh Hazelwood. Plus, we go one-on-one with the skipper, Pat Cummins. Also, Tom Hawkins responds to calls the Cats are over the hill, while Scott Penderbury's back at the Pies after just a week after having surgery. And it was a history-making day for one of the NBA's biggest superstars.
Stephen Curry, the all-time three-point king of the NBA.
I'll have more on that incredible day for Steph Curry shortly.
OK, thanks, Macca. Heavily armed police have blocked off city streets in a dramatic 6-hour restaurant siege. Details next on 7 News. Plus, heartbroken families of St Basil's victims facing an agonising wait for justice. A factory explosion sends debris flying 100 metres high. And later, why the health benefits of eating salmon aren't stacking up. Heavily armed police have blocked city streets during a dramatic 6-hour restaurant siege. A man was holed up inside before a much-loved social worker was called to help end the standoff.
On a steep roof made slippery by rain, this man began to descend.
No! Oh, no.
Witnesses in nearby buildings couldn't hide their shock. Clearly agitated, he moved dangerously close to the edge.
Oh, oh no, no, no. No! No, man, no.
On the ground, emergency services had the building surrounded. Negotiators from the Critical Incident Response Team had tried for hours to engage with him. At one point, he barricaded himself behind gas bottles before he climbed to the roof. The city standoff began at 6:30 this morning when the man was found inside the building of the Meatball and Wine Bar. Traffic in Flinders Lane was shut down for more than 5 hours. Firefighters forced entry next door to allow police access to the roof. Instead, the 48-year-old was brought back to ground level with officers inside a Fire Rescue Victoria aerial appliance. Major Brendan Nottle from the Salvation Army had been called to the scene at the request of the man, who's been homeless in the city for at least a couple of weeks.
He's been coming into our service for meals very spasmodically. Not well mentally is a big part of his concern.
The man was taken to hospital to be assessed. No charges have been laid. Cameron Bowe, 7 News.
A Braybrook factory went up in flames early this morning with reports of explosions. The blaze spread across 6 caravans before firefighting crews could bring it under control. The early indications suggest the fire isn't suspicious. A faulty valve is being blamed after an 18,000-litre tanker full of liquid nitrogen exploded. It happened at a factory near Tamworth with a major pressure build-up causing the blast, which sent debris nearly 100 metres into the air. One worker suffered minor injuries. Operators of St Basil's Aged Care, the site of Victoria's deadliest COVID outbreak, are fighting to avoid giving evidence to the coroner. It's another bitter blow to grieving families now forced to wait even longer for answers.
Former St Basil's chairman Con Contis and manager Vicky Cos were supposed to be the final witnesses called. Now they want to maintain their silence.
The opportunity to tell the truth was here today and they have declined it. You just saw them. They ran as fast as they could to get into even a moving car.
They were in charge when COVID-19 swept through St Basil's in Fawkner last year.
These people have to go on the stand because there's gaps in all the evidence being given.
They've applied to be excused on the grounds their answers in the witness box could be used against them if WorkSafe lays criminal charges. Their lawyer, Ian Hill QC, said their evidence could effectively be a dress rehearsal for any subsequent investigation. The application to excuse them has delayed the inquest. Judge John Cain will rule on it before Christmas, but he expressed concern. I need to make findings about facts and circumstances. How can I do that in absence of evidence from people who actually had their hands on the wheel at St Basil's?
How did my mother and 49 other people lose their lives? What did they do to try to protect them?
The coroner wants to ask the managers what emails they received from government departments about how to handle an outbreak and what they told staff about infection prevention control, such as social distancing and wearing PPE. Families will give victim impact statements to the coroner tomorrow. Emma O'Sullivan, 7 News.
An application from New Zealand producers to trademark the words Manuka honey has been rejected. The UK's Intellectual Property Office dismissed the request, accepting that Manuka honey isn't exclusively produced in New Zealand. The term Manuka has been used in Australia since the 19th century. It's been labelled a victory for common sense. Victoria is officially the luckiest lotto state in the country. We had the most Division 1 winners this year, 131. They walked away with a total of $358 million in prize money. It was helped by the biggest individual lottery winner of 2021, a North Melbourne father who scored $80 million. As for the luckiest postcodes, Altona Meadows, Sunbury and Melbourne each sold 3 Division 1 winning tickets. Sonia Marinelli joins us now for a look at the weather. And Sonia, those clouds just didn't budge, did they?
It was like a stubborn child. Mike and I can speak from experience. The morning's brief drizzly showers cleared, but not the cloud, and it's under grey skies. The city peaked at just 17.7 degrees. And there's patchy rain and thunderstorms clearing eastern Victoria now. But we are set to improve over the next 7 days, becoming sunnier tomorrow, and then we get a burst of heat into the weekend ahead of a stormy, cool change on Saturday afternoon. But we're in for a run of perfect days as we start the final countdown to Christmas, and fingers crossed it stays like that for the big day. Mike, I'll have the forecast after
Not
sport.
under any pressure at all. OK, thanks, Sonia. The latest NAPLAN testing shows boys are falling behind in school. Up next on 7 News, the age group that's causing the most concern. Plus, what's behind a police blitz in Richmond, Collingwood and Abbotsford. The spectacular moment a power substation goes up in flames. And Nicole Kidman on the red carpet. Details live. Police are cracking down on street-level drug dealing in Richmond, Collingwood and Abbotsford. Operation Cargo is pairing plainclothed police with specialist resources to help detect and deter criminal offending and hopefully reduce antisocial behaviour. More than 80 arrests have so far been made this year. The latest NAPLAN results have revealed a widening gender gap in schools, with boys falling behind girls in all areas. But in more promising news, the pandemic hasn't impacted Victorian students as much as first feared.
NAPLAN has revealed a class divide. Boys are lagging behind girls in every subject at every year level in Victorian schools.
Those gaps have persisted for a while, and I think there's no good reason for there to be a difference on the basis of gender.
Girls are pulling further ahead of boys in the basic skills of reading and writing, and that's an issue that we should all be concerned about.
Especially in Year 9, boys are behind in reading, spelling, grammar and numeracy. The biggest gap is in writing. 90% of Year 9 girls are meeting or exceeding the national average, compared to 79% of boys.
If the adults around boys expect them perhaps not to be as strong in reading and writing as girls, maybe they give them less opportunities to practice less challenging assignments.
But Victoria topped the nation overall, with students outperforming the rest of the country in 13 out of 20 measures.
I think that's a credit to not only our amazing teachers and our school system, but also parents who really had to deal with a lot.
The Australian Education Union has surveyed almost 3,000 teachers and principals about NAPLAN. Almost 90% said the test contributed to students' stress and anxiety, and 60% said it made no difference to student outcomes.
NAPLAN is ineffective and outdated. It's time for it to go, and it's time for Australia to have a new assessment framework which puts teachers, students and parents at its centre.
Melina Saris, 7 News.
To breaking news now, and shoppers are being rescued from a rooftop in Hong Kong after a large fire broke out in the city's World Trade Center complex. As many as 300 people who couldn't reach exits were stranded above the city and were slowly rescued on ladders. It's believed at least one person was hurt during confusion in the smoke. The tornado-ravaged state of Kentucky will investigate why workers were still inside a candle factory when a giant twister shredded the building. Some claim that despite the warning sirens, they were told they'd be sacked if they fled.
Bowling Green, Kentucky. Here, life was a matter of luck. In a deadly lottery, some houses still stand just to the side of the tornado's path.
My immediate thoughts was the babies. There's babies over here, you know, but it was gone.
So far, the town's death toll is 14. 7 are members of one family, including young children.
Everything else you can replace, but family you cannot.
It's been 4 days since one of the deadliest ever tornado strikes in the US Midwest and South. Stunning stories of survival now coming to light. Jim Douglas was one of the workers inside the Mayfield candle factory. He was trapped for 4 hours under 4 metres of steel.
I was just praying that God would take me because I didn't want to endure the pain no more.
8 people died in that building. It's now believed more than 100 other workers have been found alive.
Cadaver dogs have not indicated anything additional in the debris at the candle factory.
It's not true elsewhere across Kentucky. Scores are missing. Joe Biden is scheduled to visit here tomorrow. The president is expected to reassure those who've lost everything that the government will give them anything they need as they rebuild. In Kentucky, Tim Lester, 7 News.
A giant ball of flames has burst from a building in downtown Sacramento, California. The almighty explosion was caused by a combination of fire and a live power substation. Nobody was hurt, but the blast knocked out electricity to properties on nearby blocks. More than 50 people have been killed after a truck carrying petrol exploded in northern Haiti. Local reports say the vehicle was involved in an accident and victims had been trying to collect leaking fuel when it ignited. Surrounding cars and homes were engulfed in flames, leaving more than 100 others injured. The country's Prime Minister has declared 3 days of mourning. A 2-storey building has collapsed, falling into an Indonesian river. The building can be seen teetering as the water laps at the structure's edge before toppling over as locals watched on. There are no reports of any injuries. And former American football star O.J. Simpson has officially been discharged from parole following his release from prison in 2017. The 74-year-old served nearly 9 years in prison for armed robbery. It follows his infamous 1994 acquittal over the death of ex-wife Nicole Brown Simpson and her friend. Hollywood A-listers George Clooney and Julia Roberts have been spotted off the Queensland coast. They're filming the new romantic comedy Ticket to Paradise, while also taking the time to put up their feet and enjoy the Sunshine State. The movie is due for release in September next year. The Hollywood theme continues next. We'll cross live to Sydney as Nicole Kidman walks the red carpet. Plus, there's surprising new research on a fish favourite, why salmon might not be as good for you as we think. Also a crucial boost for kinder kids across Victoria. Father Bob's mission to lift Melbourne spirits. And the hippos lining up for a vaccine shot. Werribee Zoo. Detectives are investigating after a Maidstone man was taken to hospital last night claiming he'd been assaulted in the city. The 50-year-old's injuries aren't believed to be life-threatening. Anyone who witnessed the incident near Little Lonsdale Street is asked to contact police. Time for a check on the markets now, and the ASX 200 dropped 51 points today. Afterpay and buy now, pay later rival Zipco both tumbled. Sports betting agency PointsBet continued to fall during its expansion through America. The Aussie dollar is buying a little over 71 US cents. Thousands of Victorian children will receive a special boost next year as they begin 3-year-old kinder. Every student will be given a locally made kinder kit filled with educational toys, books and resources to play with.
These kits are really about starting that wonderful journey so that families can really see the power of play and how that helps young children develop.
6,000 new educators are still needed to continue the pandemic kindergarten reform over the next 10 years. A new study has revealed salmon might not be as healthy as first thought. Scientists are investigating if the farm fish has a far higher content of bad fats than advertised, sparking calls for an industry-wide investigation.
Sold as a superfood rich in omega-3 and healthy fats and good for your brain, but new research has found that might not all be true.
Perhaps salmon isn't as healthy as we once thought?
Independent scientists tested 2 fillets of farmed salmon from 3 different producers. The samples showed much higher levels of total and so-called bad fats compared to industry-published figures.
But that energy density of the foods is something that we know is likely to increase the likelihood of someone developing obesity.
While Tassal cites 16.1% fat in its salmon fillets, lab analysis showed total fat of up to 28.5%. Q and aquaculture was up to 24.2% fat, but tuna contained 19.8%. Tassal's saturated fats also came in well over advertised at up to 5.68%.
I wouldn't have ever thought of it as something bad to eat, especially in moderation.
I think prior to the farms it was always a healthy fish because it's fresh out of the river.
The study has prompted calls for further testing to determine if it should be considered a healthy food and for better information on our labels.
Salmon is still considered a healthy food if you're buying fresh. Experts say it's worth doing your research before shopping.
The Tasmanian Growers Association has rejected the research, saying it's merely consumer-focused spot testing.
I think everyone's just jumping the gun at the moment. Salmon's a beautiful fish.
Rochelle Brown, 7 News.
Charity icon Father Bob Maguire is calling on Melburnians to inject some much-needed festive spirit into our city. So today he staged the We Need a Little Christmas variety show to get the ball rolling.
For we need a little Christmas right this very minute.
The festive philosophy of fun behind Father Bob's Christmas crusade.
We need to brighten up our miserable lives. Yeah, we're very miserable just now, unfortunately.
So the 87-year-old filled Federation Square with a variety show to remind Victorians Yuletide spirit can help cure COVID blues.
Oh yeah, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. Oh yeah. Well, that's what you do, you see, it's infectious.
But for so many here, it'll be a tough Christmas. Father Bob's foundation flat out feeding the needy.
More than ever, you see, and that's why we have to get onwards and up.
So this is Christmas.
For Christopher Jeffries, homeless for so long, now finally in accommodation, this is inspiring.
Oh, it gives me hope, it gives me faith, it makes me so happy to see all people coming together.
Music to Father Bob's ears. Nick McCallum, 7 News.
Good on you, Father Bob. Even animals in Melbourne are lining to get the jab after Werribee Zoo successfully trained hippopotamuses to walk up for a tetanus immunisation.
Historically, we've provided vaccinations when we're checking out a hippo for other health concerns, or it might be under an anaesthetic. Now, that can be risky for larger animals, and we really want to avoid that.
The new skill allows vaccinations to be integrated into the hippo's annual health care regime. We'll hear from Nicole Kidman on the red carpet after sport, but first our own Hollywood hunk Andrew McCormack and Macca David Warner is bracing for some pain to come his way in Adelaide.
Mike, England bowlers will have an easy target to aim at, that's for sure. Up next, how Warner will handle the heat in the second test. We go one-on-one with the skipper, plus the young paceman ready to fire. Also, Tom Hawkins laughs off the Dad's Army tag, instead licking his lips ahead of 2022. Steph Curry takes the throne as the NBA's three-point king with some help from Mum, and a special reunion for a Melbourne Olympics hero. Welcome back. David Warner will weigh up the use of painkilling injections to help push through his rib injury in the second Ashes test. England has named Jimmy Anderson and Stuart Broad in a 12-man squad as they look to bounce back off the canvas in Adelaide. With some last-minute advice from his three closest advisors, David Warner strapped on a chest guard to test out his damaged ribs. And while clearly still restricted, the short throwdown session was enough to convince the captain.
Apparently really painful, which he keeps telling us. But he got through the session yesterday. He's going to be a bit sore, but he's fine. He was drug-free yesterday, I think so. There's a few options, but I think adrenaline will be enough.
A not-so-subtle target to aim for the returning Broad and Anderson with the pink ball.
Maybe 15 years ago when I had an extra yard of pace.
England's greatest ever wicket taker still a touch rusty after being rested from the opening test.
Are you in? Yeah. I'm in the media conference. I don't know, I'm in the 12. Am I allowed to say that?
The tourists to wait right up until the toss to finalise their 11.
All I can do is try and prepare as well as I can, stay fit, and if the captain wants me to play, then I'll be there for him.
Jai Richardson confirmed as Josh Hazlewood's replacement, the WA speedster has packed on 6 kilos of muscle since his last test appearance more than 1,000 days ago.
Swings the ball, he's really consistent, he can lock in, bowl 20 overs for 20 runs.
The only downside to Alex Carey's dream test debut was his father unable to be there to see it. Gordon is battling leukemia, which makes the wicketkeeper's home test in Adelaide even more emotional.
Hopefully we can get him healthy enough to come along and see a couple of balls at least.
Aussie World Cup hero Mitch Marsh remains an outside chance of a test call-up this summer after smashing an unbeaten century off just 60 balls against the Hurricanes, which included 5 monster sixes.
Take a bow, Mitch Marsh. What a knock, what a shot.
A fan was left bloodied after a crowd catch gone wrong as the Scorchers won by 53 runs. To footy, and Geelong veteran Tom Hawkins has dismissed suggestions the Cats are too old to contend again next year. And 7 News can tonight reveal details of an off-field change that could reap big rewards for fellow forward Jeremy Cameron.
The Cats were all chips in this year, a common view in footy. They've got one more year to contend before falling off a cliff.
I have heard that we're an ageing list. I don't feel like that. I think we're in a wonderful position.
Hawkins thinks Jeremy Cameron provides plenty of upside. The superstar recruit finally enjoying a full pre-season, hampered by a hamstring injury in 2021.
Your chemistry is really important as keys. I think that's going to be important moving forward.
Cameron's injury became a talking point inside Geelong, and off-field, the Cats have changed up the structure between their medical and football departments. With COVID cuts, the doctor reported to the football boss. But Harry Taylor will now act as the link. The Cats great, a former physio, is now their head of medical and high performance. At Collingwood, Scott Pendlebury was back watching training. The Pies captain had surgery on his fractured leg this time last week. A small patch, the only visible sign of the operation. Mason Cox continues to train in sunglasses. He had 3 eye surgeries in 2019 for a detached retina. Collingwood will hold its AGM tomorrow night, where they'll announce the results of the club's board election. Tom Brown, 7 News.
Steph Curry has become the NBA's greatest three-point shooter of all time. The Warriors superstar equalled Ray Allen's mark of 2,973 with his first attempt, then passed him moments later against the Knicks at Madison Square Garden.
For the record, it's good! There it is! Stephen Curry! The all-time three-point king of the NBA!
The emotion was clear to see after the record-breaking shot. The Celtics legend Allen was on hand to congratulate Curry, who passed his mark 518 less games.
I've been thinking about this number for a long time. I even got it on my shoes, so basketball history, this is pretty special.
Curry finished with 5 3-pointers in the 105-96-point win. Meanwhile, Melbourne United's Mason Peatling has been hit with a one-game ban for unduly rough play after starting Sunday's all-in brawl against the Phoenix. 5 other players, including Phoenix star Mitch Creek, were fined for their part in the melee. Premier League players are now being COVID tested daily after a worrying spike in cases. Manchester United's clash with Brentford is the second game in just a matter of days to be postponed on medical advice. Manchester City's game went ahead, though Leeds probably wished it didn't. The reigning champions won 7-0 to move 4 points clear on top of the Premier League table. It's Leeds' biggest defeat of the Premier League era. And Melbourne's Olympic bronze medalist Brendan Smith has finally got a hero's welcome home. The 400-metre swimmer surprised by family and friends this afternoon.
I was just about to text you. It's been a very long time, and I'm probably the last person to come home and see my family after the Olympics, but I'm finally home, so yeah, really happy.
Oh, that's brilliant. Smith was away for more than 200 days swimming overseas and in Brisbane avoiding quarantine. He was also reunited with his Olympic medal, which he left with his coach in Tokyo. His focus now is the National Championships in April. Great way to finish sport.
Yeah, nice story. Thanks, Macca. Nicole Kidman is walking the red carpet tonight for the Australian premiere of her new film, playing another famous redhead. Amber Laidler joins us live from Sydney. And Amber, she's being acclaimed for her portrayal of Lucille Ball.
Yes, Mark, Nicole arrived here on the red carpet a short time ago alongside her husband, Keith Urban. She touched down in Sydney on private jet last week and will soon introduce her new film, being The Ricardos. Nicole has been nominated for a Golden Globe for her portrayal of Lucille Ball during a week of I Love Lucy production, when the iconic sitcom actress is accused of being a communist.
Incredibly daunting. I will be completely honest. It was really terrifying at times, and then I just was lucky enough that Aaron was like, just go for it.
Being The Ricardos premieres on Amazon Prime Video on December 21st, Mark.
Amber, thank you. Sonia is next with the forecast. And Sonia, when will the sun return?
Increasing sunshine tomorrow, Mike, ahead of a spectacular Friday. I'll have the details next. Hello again on what has been a very grey Wednesday. We had stubborn cloud and some very light drizzly showers, but sunshine returns tomorrow. Our low was 15.2, our high 17.7, and that is 6 degrees below the December average. But it was up to 8 degrees colder than normal around the suburbs. Most spots now resting on 16 or 17 degrees. A band of rain marched across northern Victoria, delivering patchy falls of between 1 and 6 millimetres, but there was 8 collected in the gauge at Mount Buller. Once again, we had those storms sparking up over the far east this afternoon, but they have cleared out now. The cloud kept a lid on temperatures right across the state. They were between 2 to 6 degrees below the December average, although it wasn't too far off down along the coastal fringe. It reached 20 in Warrnambool. A low pressure trough that's been hanging around for a few days, that's going to clear out tonight. A high moving in, shifting our cool winds round to a warm northerly over the next few days. So that heat building on Friday into Saturday before a thundery change hits the state Saturday afternoon with little to no rainfall. Another weak front will clip southern Victoria on Sunday. Again, we're not expecting much in the way of showers before fining up on Monday. To the forecast now, starting with a look around the nation. Another dry, sunny day in Brisbane, a top of 31 degrees. A possible shower in Sydney, 24. Lovely in Canberra, look at that, 27 under sunny skies. And a fine day in Hobart. In Adelaide, the Ashes getting underway tomorrow afternoon in a warm 30. To Victoria now, we'll start with some morning fog in the east, isolated showers or drizzle through the south, becoming mostly sunny in the afternoon though, but dry and sunny all day in the north. Closer in, there'll be a few light showers to start the day, the cloud clearing out around lunchtime to a sunny afternoon. Most spots around town heading between 21 and 23 degrees, in Geelong a top of 21. In the city from a low of 13 degrees, we should reach 20 in that afternoon sunshine. Looking ahead, and Friday is a spectacular, light winds and lots of sunshine, a top of 30 to end the working week. Warm northerlies will push the temperature up to 33 on Saturday before a gusty cool change arrives in the afternoon. A possible shower on Sunday, then a run of fine days as we head towards Christmas. Monday 26, Tuesday 25, Wednesday 23 under lots of sunshine. Now we're still waiting for the Christmas forecast, but I do have an inside tip. It could very well be a warm one this year. It's early days, Mike, but you know, something to look forward to.
Building up the hopes there, Sonia. Thank you. Now let's see what's on Sunrise tomorrow.
Thanks, Mike. Tomorrow on Sunrise, Melbourne's worst car parks revealed.
A major investigation into the shopping centre car park collisions happening time and time again in the very same hotspots, where to avoid during the silly season.
We'll see you in the morning.
And that's 7 News for this Wednesday night. We'll have updates throughout the evening. For now, from the 7 News team, have a great night.